You can worship God. You don't have to go somewhere physically. It's something that is in you that He's going to install on the inside of you. You worship what you know not what. We know what we worship. Salvation is of the Jews. Notice again in verse 23. The hour now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father. The true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. In other words, not in Jerusalem or in Samaria, but in spirit and in truth. That's speaking of internally, on the inside of you. The true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship Him. He's looking, He wants people that will worship Him out of their own heart and out of their own spirit. I was reading this morning in the Message translation. I liked what the Message said on this verse. Could you give me that in the Message, Elliot, in verse 23? The time is coming, it has in fact come, when what you're calling, what you're called will not matter, and where you go to worship will not matter. I like that, don't you? What you're called doesn't matter, and where you go to worship doesn't matter. See, everybody makes such a big issue. I'm a this and I'm a that, and we put all these labels on everything. Jesus said that doesn't matter. What you're called doesn't matter, and where you go does not matter. It's who you are and the way you live that counts before God. Your worship must engage your spirit in the pursuit of truth. That's the kind of people the Father is looking for. Listen to this last little thought here. Those who are simply and honestly themselves before Him in their worship. Isn't that nice? Those who are simply and honestly themselves, not putting on a show, not trying to, be something for other people, just simply honestly themselves before Him in their worship. That speaks of sincerity, of heart and soul and internally. But I think that's a beautiful thought. Okay, verse 24. Let's go on. Could you give me the King James again, Elliot? God is a spirit, and they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. He says God is not a physical being. You don't worship Him in a physical place. He doesn't live in a temple in Jerusalem. He doesn't live in a house built with hands. He's a spirit, and He receives worship that is spiritual, out of our spirits. The woman said unto Him, I know that Messiah is coming, or the Messiah, which is called Christ. When He is come, He will tell us all things. Again, she's attempting to change the subject. She says, well, this is too deep for me. But when the Messiah comes, He's going to explain all of this to it. And Jesus says to her, notice verse 26, He just comes right out and tells her, I that speak unto thee am He. And upon this came His disciples and marveled that He talked with the woman. Yet no man said, what seekest thou her? Why do you talk with her? The woman then left her water pot and went away into the city, and saith unto the men, come and see a man which told me all the things ever I did. Is not this the Christ? And they went out of the city and came unto Him. In the meantime, the disciples prayed Him and said, Master, eat. But He said unto them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. And therefore His disciples said one to another, hath any man brought Him aught to eat? Jesus said unto them, my meat is to do the will of Him that sent me, and to finish His work, of which He's been doing. Verse 35 says, say ye not, there are 4 months, and then comes the harvest? Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes, look on the fields, they're white already to harvest. We sometimes take this verse and apply it to ourselves, and it might have that application. I think that's fair to make that application. But Jesus is specifically talking about what He was doing at that time in the nation of Israel. He was reaping a harvest of faithful Old Covenant people, because there was coming a cataclysmic conclusion to the Old Covenant. In exactly one generation from the time that Jesus was walking and talking on the earth, 40 years, exactly 40 years, the Roman armies marched into Judea and destroyed the temple. Jesus predicted it. It came to pass within exactly one generation. He was reaping a harvest right then and there. Now this applies, of course, to our day. We could make the same application. But He's talking about something He is doing right there at this time, even with this woman in Samaria. Verse 36, he that reapeth receiveth wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal. Both he that soweth and he that reapeth rejoice together. And herein is the saying true, one sows, another reaps. I sent you to reap where you bestowed no labor. Other men labored, you are entered into their labors. I think that's pretty much says it the way it is. Verse 39. And many of the Samaritans of the city believed on Him. Notice, by the way, I don't want to ever let this pass in the Gospel of John without calling your attention to it. The intent of everything that He does is that people would believe on Him. What He's looking for from you and me is to believe in Him, or to believe on Him. What He's looking for out of people in the world is to believe in Him. That's what He wants. That's what He's looking for us to trust in Him, for us to put our faith in Him. And it always points this out after He does certain things. It says, many believed on Him. That's what He's looking for. You know, the word believe appears in this gospel close to 100 times. Think about that. In this short gospel, the word believe in some form appears close to 100 times. So, many of the Samaritans in that city believed on Him for the saying of the woman, "He told me all that I ever did." So when the Samaritans were come unto Him, they besought Him that He would tarry with them. And He abode there 2 days. And many more believed because of His word. The intent of what He does is that we believe on Him, and that they believe on Him. And said the woman, "Now we believe, not because of thy saying, not because of thy saying, for we have heard Him ourselves. We know that this is indeed the Christ, the Savior of the world." Now we change gears, and here's another account here that's very interesting. Verse 43. After 2 days He departed thence and went into Galilee, for Jesus Himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. And when He was come into Galilee, the Galileans received Him, having seen all the things that He did at Jerusalem at the feast, for they also went into the feast. So Jesus came into Cana of Galilee, where He made the water wine. If you'll remember, this was, John pointed out, His first miracle. He changed the water into wine, making the point that Jesus changes what's on the inside. Here He's come back again, and there came to Him a certain nobleman, or literally a courtier, or a ruler, or someone involved with the Roman government, whose son was sick at Capernaum. Now this man was not a Jew, he was a Gentile, but he had evidently heard of Jesus, and he came to Him. He said, it says in verse 47, when he heard that Jesus was come out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto Him, and he besought Him that He would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. He's evidently heard of Jesus, and his son is sick in a bad situation, a desperate situation. It says at the point of death. I don't think you could get more desperate than that. A kind of a hopeless and a desperate situation. And he comes to Jesus. Jesus answers in verse 48, "Except you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The nobleman said, "Sir, come down ere my child die." Verse 50, Jesus said, Go thy way, thy son liveth." And the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken unto him. Elliot, give me the message. I think the message is good on this verse 50. Jesus simply replied, "Go home, your son lives." The man believed the bare word Jesus spoke and headed home. I like that. He believed the bare word. In other words, he didn't see anything. He didn't feel anything. He didn't have to have any other evidence than the bare word of Jesus. And the reason I like that is because really that's what we have. We have the bare word of Jesus. And it says he believed the bare word of Jesus. Go back again to King James, Elliot. Let me read that again. Jesus said, "Go thy way." In other words, just go on. Go on, your son lives. Well, he had a choice right here. He could have said, "Aren't you coming with me?" Or, "How do I know?" Well, all he had was the bare word of Jesus. He believed the bare word of Jesus, and that Jesus had spoken, and he went his way. He showed that he believed it by going his way, as though what Jesus had said was true. Next verse. "And when he was going down, his servants met him and told him and said, Your son lives. Then inquired he of them the hour when he began to amend. And he said unto him, Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him." Did you know, there's a couple of things in this verse I think are interesting. It said yesterday at the 7th hour it left him. The next verse tells us that Jesus knew that was the hour he had this conversation with Jesus. He began to amend at a certain point. But what was it that happened at that certain point? Well, really two things happened. The bare word of Jesus and this man, what triggered it, what changed, what happened, what initiated it was Jesus spoke and he believed it. Jesus spoke and he believed it.